Now, ladies and gentlemen, to a very exotic place in the world. It is more or less on the other side of the globe compared to the Faroe Islands. As far as I know, it's about 2,000 kilometers northeast of Australia. It's called New Caledonia. And it's very interesting that the guy who was on stage just before, he comes out of Scotland, and the name New Caledonia obviously means New Scotland originally. So we have just heard about Old Scotland, now we're going to hear about the new one. And the representative who has come out of New Caledonia, the leader of the delegation, is Daniel Goa. I know that in a paper we have written that he is a president of New Caledonia, and that is not right. He is a president to be after independence. But he is the leader of the independence movement in New Caledonia. And he will be presenting together with Ilian Kiloe. And the floor is yours, please.
Bonjour. Ta orholen nanda. Ta metuna rani mita menahot. Indo manatena yok ngao, yok nigo, ayok marumba, ay hun. Lo pona mona utagodara ni yang diun pa he ni minan. Awi pepe ni tuhimo, awe muhimo, awe pamuina neven faire évoluer le pays. Indo on holen nanda. Aita mana mitang mena Korea na mihina pili hainda da mitang ora manjene nemi. Inda ondu mwenga ai yeli palangaru Kiloe. O kape ya wahana hinan pu farangele. So palpalalong. Indo hole bainanda no koi.
Thank you very much. The Prime Minister of Faroe Island, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Speaker of Parliament, all members of Parliament that are present here today, the independent leaders of Catalonia, Scottish, and also others that are present here today, ladies and gentlemen. For practical reasons, I stand here today to present this statement on behalf of the leader of delegation as well as the president of the Carnegie Association for Liberation Movement. We also have, as part of the delegation, the permanent secretary of the Carnegie Liberation Movement that are here with us, as well as the president of the youth organization in New Caledonia, Mr. Dimitri Kenenge. So on behalf, I'm presenting this statement, and I'll try to go really slowly so that we can follow the case in New Caledonia. First of all, I would like to express our most sincere appreciation to Honorable Magna for the invitation extended to us to participate in this conference, as well as the courtesies and hospitalities that were extended to us since our arrival here in your beautiful country. The question that we would like to address this afternoon is what role has the United Nations played in the implementation of the Nouméa Code? And we will try to provide some elements of analysis and reflections of what we think are the reasons. And I have stated earlier on in my question and remark, the Nouméa Code is an agreement that was signed between the Kanaki liberation movement and the administrative power of France that sets out the process for the colonization of New Caledonia. To begin with, the United Nations, with the adoption of the General Assembly Resolution 1514 of 14 December 1960, on the Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Powers, provided a clear framework under Article 1 and 2. The subjection of the people to foreign domination and the exploitation constitutes a denial of fundamental human rights, is contrary to the Charter of United Nations, and undermines the cause of world peace and cooperation. All peoples have the right to self-determination, and by virtue of this right, can freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. In addition, the Declaration of Human Rights and all global decisions would enshrine the right of colonized people in this vision. For example, the United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which have the same article in 1.1. For all peoples have the right to self-determination. Subsequently, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the establishment of the Special Committee on Decolonization, which is responsible for implementing the declaration with a series of technical and legal tools, enabling to accompany the non-self-governing territories with an annual work plan and mandate. Kanaki, New Caledonia, the Melanesian land of the Pacific, was colonized by France for over 65 years ago to this day. The colonized Kanaki people experience all sorts of challenges, forms of colonial repression, exploitation of resources, suppression of right to speak their own language, right to education, and right to work, until the end of the Second World War, when, like all colonized people of the world, they began to enter into a new political dynamics, materialized by the right to vote that they had in 1953. Then we tried as best we could to put our people in a position of progress. The winds of freedom that blew across Melanesia in the Pacific in the 1970s and 1980s, following the independence of most of the countries in Melanesia, including Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Solomon Islands, and Vanuatu, gave a new impetus to the New Caledonian struggle. It was in this context that the struggle of influence began with France to get the Kanaki people to admit and to exercise the right to self-determination. This struggle culminated on 2nd December 1986 with the reinstatement of Kanaki, New Caledonia on the United Nations list of decolonized territories for the decolonization process. Since then, the General Assembly has adopted an annual resolution on Kanak in New Caledonia to observe its political progress and to watch full and complete emancipation. 32 resolutions since Resolution 32 in 1986. The Kanak Liberation Movement has signed 2 successive agreements with France and the pro-French parties. First, the Matignon Agreement in 1988, the so-called Political and Economic Rebalancing Agreement, and the Nouméa Agreement in 1998. The process for emancipation and decolonization process with the Kanaks at the center of the system and an irreversible transfer of competencies until obtaining full sovereignty. We are therefore coming to the end of this modern and innovative process of decolonization with the referendum that will be held just 23 days from now, on the 4th of November 2018, that's next month, during which the population consent will have to answer to the question, which is, do you want New Caledonia to attain full sovereignty and become independent? So that's the question that will be answered on 4th of November. Nevertheless, the last 20 years have not been easy. The process for decolonization and total implementation of the political agreements that was signed with France, which perpetuated a system of exploitation of wealth, which favors a growing social imbalance on the one hand, and on the other hand, to watch the administrating power, which has organized or facilitated massive immigration aimed at making us a minority in our own country, thus allowing it to structure their influence. To fight against this dominance, we are able to rely on the support of our Pacific neighbors, and in particular the Melanesian Spearhead Group. And at this juncture, I would like to say a bit more about Melanesian Spearhead Group, what it constitutes and what it stands for. The Melanesian Spearhead Group is a sub-regional organization in the Pacific that consists of Melanesian countries, namely Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, my home country, Vanuatu, Fiji, and the Kanak Liberation Movement of New Caledonia. Fiji obtained independence in 1970. Papua New Guinea obtained the independence in 1975. Solomon Islands and the independence in 1978. And Vanuatu in 1980. So these are the sort of influence that led to the formation of the sub-regional organization. And only one member, the Kanak Liberation Movement, that's still under a colonial administrative. And so the organization was formed basically to support the struggle of Kanaki people to obtain their independence. In 2013, the leaders of the MSG, in short, the Melanesian Spearhead Group, adopted a declaration in Numea that's called the Numean Declaration, reaffirming their support for the independent movement in New Caledonia. And early this year, during the meeting in Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea, an action plan was adopted to further their support for the independence movement in New Caledonia. And all the member countries of the MSG are also members of the United Nations, two of which are also members of the Spatial Decolonization Committee. So the strategies that we use to support the independence movement in New Caledonia is through the United Nations, through that framework that we've established, and through the influence of our ambassadors in New York. And so that's the connection. And we also lobby internationally, regionally, and nationally to implement and to continue to support the struggle of New Caledonia towards independence. And that's the main reason I'm here with the delegation, to continue to advocate for this noble cause. It is in this context that since March 2014, we have been able to benefit from 5 United Nations movements, missions to New Caledonia. 3 missions by the Department of Political Affairs of the United Nations, electoral observation missions, and 2 visiting missions of the Spatial Committee on Decolonization. The reports of these missions are primarily diplomatic in nature. Nevertheless, we note that the subject denounced by the FLNSK, or the concerns raised by the Kanaki movement for liberation, find a sincere place in the official decisions of the General Assembly. And in particular on these particular issues that have been raised. Firstly, on the electoral process, the UN noted there are certain breach of principles of equality in the treatment of voters. It also noted treatment of voters in similar cases that the right of appeal was ineffective. And it invited the administering power to review its methods of drawing up the electoral process, and in particular the electoral list. On natural resources, the United Nations reaffirmed that natural resources are the heritage of the people of the non-self-governing territory, including the Kanaki indigenous peoples. And in this context, the General Assembly urges the administering power to take appropriate measures to protect and guarantee the rights of the New Caledonian people over the natural resources. On immigration, the General Assembly noted the continuing concern of the Kanaki people about the underrepresentation in the government and social structures due to the continuing migration of people into New Caledonia. On the referendum process, the General Assembly noted that appropriate measures needs to be taken for the organization of the future consultation on full sovereignty, including the establishment of a fair, regular, credible, and transparent electoral list, as provided for in the Numea Accord, are essential for the achievement of a free and fair act of self-determination in accordance with the Charter and the principles and practices of the United Nations. Recently, in March this year, the second visiting mission of the Spatial Committee on Decolonization also noted that racial discrimination continues to be developed against the indigenous people of Kanaki. And so in short, we consider that the Kanak liberation movement has significant political leverage that will allow us to bounce back in the event if the outcome of the referendum next month turns out to be against us. On the other hand, in the event if the referendum outcome is in favor of the Kanaki people, we will propose the establishment of a 2 to 4 year plan, a period for the establishment of the new state under the United Nations, what's to enable us to establish the foundations of the new state. The proclamation of the new state will activate our exit from the list of the countries under the decolonization list. And before I conclude, I would like to tell you that while the recent opinion polls turns out to be against independence, we are hoping that the outcome could change and be in our favor. An accession of New Caledonia to independence would constitute a historic opportunity for our planet because it will make it possible to better respond to the global challenges facing our society today at the local, regional, and international level to ensure the advancement of peaceful cooperation amongst nations. Ladies and gentlemen, with these few remarks, I would like to again thank you for your attention. Thank you, Tomas. Thank you, Vinaka Vakalevu Oleti.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation on the path to independence in New Caledonia and on matters that mean so much to you in your home country. We have a question for you. I hope you will be ready to answer. And Björn Konoi, Joshua.
I'll start with English and then I may translate also to French. I'll do it myself, thank you. The situation of New Caledonia is quite singular if comparisons made to Catalonia or the Faroe Islands for that matter. You are a subject of international law because you are under the obligations that arise for France with regard to Chapter 11 under the United Nations Charter. Yet the normal rule would be that it's a discretion for the state, the member state of the United Nations, to determine which subjects are entitled to fall within the realm of Chapter 11. Yet you managed, with significant endeavours, to engage the General Assembly of the United Nations to adopt a resolution, notwithstanding the position of France on that particular question, but the result of which is that New Caledonia was a part of those subjects which fall under Chapter 11. And I would think it very interesting to hear more about that process, as it is, from an international legal point of view, a very interesting step. And secondly, an interesting matter also in this regard, with regard to the referendum which is being held on 4th November, is what are the criteria to participate in elections? Is it residence, or would one have to have resided in New Caledonia for X amount of years or months in order to be entitled to participate in elections? Je disais tout court que normalement la procédure c'est que c'est l'État membre des Nations Unies qui a les droits discrétionnaires de décider quel territoire tombe sous le chapitre 11 de la charte de l'ONU. Et par contre, dans le cas de la Nouvelle-Calédonie, c'est effectivement des États de la région qui ont réussi à faire en sorte que l'Assemblée générale a pris ordre de cette question et a adopté une résolution dont le résultat est que la Nouvelle-Calédonie tombe dans le chapitre 11 de la charte de l'ONU. Nonobstant la position de la France sur cette petite question. Et ma deuxième question, c'était, ce sera bien intéressant de savoir quels sont les critères afin de participer dans les élections le 4 novembre. C'est un critère de résidence. Faut-il avoir vécu sur le territoire de la Nouvelle-Calédonie pendant X mois ou années? Bien, merci d'avance de votre réponse.
Le premier, moi je prends le deuxième. Moi, deuxième.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that very good question. I think I'll try to answer the first part of the question, and our Linda will answer the second part of the question. I think my understanding on your question, the first part, through the framework of the United Nations, as you've rightly said that under the United Nations Charter and the subsequent resolutions that confirmed the right for self-determination of people, had in fact recognized the process that is happening in New Caledonia. And that for us is an advantage because we use that process to advocate for the right of self-determination. More importantly, in that process, the engagement that we have with our missions at the United Nations have proved to be very essential and important. Initially because of the influence that our members have and the connections and the networkings that we have at the United Nations, and to be able to raise consent with regards to the referendum process, but as well as the process itself and the support of the MSG, the Melanesian Spain Group. So it has been quite successful in terms of advancing and promoting the process at the international level, in particular the United Nations. And the action plan that was adopted by our leaders this year, that I have alluded into in my statement, that recognizes that process for us to continue that support at the United Nations and to continue to provide an avenue where the liberation movement and the Kanaki people can be able to raise their issues and concerns. So that process had been very useful for the decolonization process in New Caledonia. And during sessions of this Special Committee on Decolonization, the territories under the decolonization list are also provided the opportunity to present petitions in those subcommittees. So that's another avenue that we use to be able to raise concerns and to be able to promote the decolonization process, and also to lobby for support amongst the members of the United Nations. So it has been quite successful, and from our perspective, we will continue to use that avenue to further promote and also provide assistance to the people of Kanak in that process.
La deuxième question. Je vais répondre à la deuxième question. Vous la retraduirez en... Alors, concernant cette population qui va prendre part à la décision dans le référendum, c'est que nous sommes dans une période de décolonisation. Nous avons mis 30 ans, 10 ans de l'accord de Matignon, 10 ans de l'accord de Nouméa, ça fait 30 ans pour sortir du giron français. Et en même temps, la France, elle finance la décolonisation. Ça veut dire que beaucoup d'argent français sont arrivés. Et donc, il y a l'activité économique qui a monté en ampleur. Et donc, ça a attiré plein d'immigration. Beaucoup de gens sont arrivés parce qu'il faut travailler. Nous ne sommes qu'à 300 000 habitants. Et après 165 ans de vie avec la France, on n'a toujours pas de médecin, on n'a toujours pas d'avocat, on n'a pas de juge. Et je ne parle pas du niveau scolaire en milieu kanak, en milieu océanien. Ça veut dire que la France n'a rien fait pour préparer le pays à sortir. Par contre, quand il y a du développement économique qui appelle les gens à venir pour occuper les postes, eh bien, jusqu'à présent, ces gens-là ont le droit de faire le choix sur notre avenir. Ça veut dire qu'ils votent. Ils votent. Alors, celui qui arrive hier par l'avion, bah, il ne connaît pas le pays, il ne connaît pas les gens, il ne connaît même pas la situation politique du pays, bah, il vote. Il va voter pour qui? Pour la France. Donc, contre nous, qui subissons la politique de la France là-bas. Et donc, avec l'accord de Nouméa, on a dit, bon, il va falloir commencer à construire le peuple calédonien. Le peuple kanak, plus les peuples du Vietnam, de Wallis, de Tahiti, le peuple de France. Il y a une partie du peuple de France qui est admis là-bas parce que, vu son histoire, sa présence sur le pays, il a construit le pays avec nous. Et donc, nous avons choisi, selon les critères qu'on avait déterminés, de mettre en place une population qui va devenir la citoyenneté calédonienne demain. C'est cette population-là, 164 000 personnes, 174 000 personnes, qui sont les citoyens du pays. Donc c'est eux qui vont voter au référendum. Et tous les autres qui arrivent, ben, ils sont là parce qu'ils n'ont pas à choisir la destinée du pays. Par contre, les communes, les mairies, ils sont restés des mairies françaises. Donc, eux, ils peuvent voter dans les mairies pour élire les maires, pour le conseil municipal. Mais le Parlement, qu'on appelle le Congrès, comme les provinces, c'est l'organisation du pays qui a été fixée par l'accord de Nouméa, qui a 20 ans aujourd'hui. Eh bien ça concerne les Calédoniens. Donc ils vont devenir les citoyens calédoniens qui ont un pays et un droit de vote. Et voilà, je ne sais pas si j'ai...
I fully understand that he would like to explain all things to us, but there are so many of us who don't understand the French answers. So who can elaborate very shortly on the answers? Skal du gjøre?
Ja, så han sier at gångte blir 30 år siden, og at vi har samband med sattmannen fra Matignon fra 1984, og siden vi nå med avtalen fra 1985. Og samtidig det som var opplyst, så Frakland investerer noen penger i Nomea, i Ny Kaledonia, og det vokser en fraklandiger flotter til Ny Kaledonia, og sånn sagt de kunne årlige utslitte, hvis jeg kunne ikke lot i Fólkaatquøðuni, og hvordan nå er at utbyggingen under olja landstøye, mellom folk som opprunnelig henne. Og det som visser at for noen år siden det just en konstruksjon som heter en utbygg i Ny Kaledonia, men han utgrann ikke hva det innebærer og hva kriterier skulle oppfylt for en utbygg. Men enda målet vi har som være for og fyr er faktisk å komme nå i flott Ny Kaledonia, nå gjør det ikke ha noe tilhører til stedet, kunne ta lot i hvønn.
Thank you very much, Daniel Goa, and the representatives of New Caledonia. Should we give them a big applause?
Merci.